Welcome back to 3-Day Weekend. We're here for the finale, so help me, this will be the final video on this Kodiak, rebuilding it. Taking our bad valve and making it into a good valve that's not completely bent and destroyed. It's going to run today. Let's do it. I've received everything I said I was going to do in the last video, I believe. I have new stem seal. We're going to throw a new one of those in there since we're changing that. A new O-ring for the cylinder to the crank. We have a new head gasket. We have some piston rings. That'll be fun. A new cylinder to block gasket. And then a new lock washer strap thing that goes in here, holds our cam bolt on. Stem seal, not very complicated. There we go. How the old. And in with the new. Beautiful. On the new valve, we're just going to slide right in there. But we want to make sure that's making a real nice seal, so we're going to lap that valve. Valve lapping or valve grinding isn't that complicated. We have some valve grinding compound. And we're just going to put a little bit of that all around the surface of our valve here. A little goes a long way. I got a little more than I expected when I squeezed that tube just then. We'll flip this back over so we can get to the top of the valve. And I usually just grab a piece of 1/4-inch hose. Ooh, that's a little looser than 1/4-inch hose. That's not the right size. Hold on. That's better. And I get my drill. I just turn it and pull at the same time. Oh, come on. We'll wipe down the edges and make sure it doesn't leak. There, you can see on the edge of this valve, there's that little ring. It's a little faint. I think I want to go just a little bit more on that. So I'm going to do it one more time. Now you can see that dulled section right between the two shinies. That's what we're looking for. So I like that. So now we get to put the valve back in, install it, put some springs on there, and then we'll test it with some brake clean, make sure it's holding a good seal. We already tested the exhaust valve in another video and found that it was perfectly sealed, wasn't leaking at all. We're going to set our springs back in there. Try to see if there's a way to tell top or bottom. They look the same top or bottom, but mine have paint marks on the top. So this one has white paint and that one has red paint, and they're at the top. So I don't know what the significance is of that, but that's how we're going to put it right back in. And then the also cumbersome valve spring tool needs to go in position. Alright, this is going to be just about impossible to show, so we have to put our little keepers down in there. So I usually have some oil here, and you can get them a little wet with oil so they stick. Maybe I'll get that before I go any further. There, I got it. Oh my gosh, I got it. Woo! Man, that took some work. Oh, where I gotta go? There it is. But I got them seated in there. They aren't perfectly spaced, but it will work. Holy cow, that was a pain in the neck. Just not a lot of space to get down in there. But it is in there. Now, when we took this apart, I took the adjuster out of the exhaust side, thinking it was the intake side. So I'm gonna find that, put that back in real quick. And put the nut back on. Now we're going to put the cam back in, which might be easier to handle if we put that screw back in we used, or the bolt we used to take it out, yeah, that'll work. Perfect. Put that in there. Put this in there. This is our new one. And these bolts should go right in easy. And we're torquing these down to 69 inch-pounds. Fold up the little tabs on our lockers. There we go. That ought to hold it. So the last thing we need to do is spray some carbon choke cleaner up there and see if it leaks out. Just give that a few minutes. I'll clean up tools while we wait. Bone dry. Okay. That's good. She sealed right. If not, you gotta take that whole mess back apart, lap it a little bit more and try it again. So that is good. Got the specs pulled up. Valve clearance cold. That's what we're shooting for right there. Intake exhaust. I usually go for the middle, so I'm going 0.08 intake, 0.18 exhaust. There we go. It doesn't get much easier to do that than while it's sitting right here on the bench. In fact, I'm going to take it one step further, I think, and put caps on these so I don't have to worry about foreign matter getting down in there. And these covers are the same, so doesn't matter which one goes on which side. Tighten these down to 86 inch-pounds. I don't have a 3/8 that goes down to 86 inch-pounds. It's like 5.6 foot-pounds, and the lowest I can go is 10. I only have 3/8 drive, 5mm hex. So we're just going with tight. We'll do the same on this side cover. Just put that on there so nothing will fall down in. Just peace of mind. We're pretty much done with the cylinder head. The only other thing we can check is make sure the head surface is clean, which it is. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to work on the cylinder next. We have 2 dowels in there. Make sure we keep track of those. Remove the old head gasket. And we have to remove this old crusty gasket from here. Looks like we have a couple dowels on there too. Want to make sure we keep track of those. Oh, this is going to be fun to take off. Yes. Good. Great. Grand. We have our surfaces all nice and clean. Beautiful. So now I need to turn my attention to the piston rings and this cylinder. Not going to go crazy on this. I just want to put a little bit in there. So send this home through. And I have to hold it all at the same time. Worst case scenario, I just need to buy a new cylinder, right? Yep. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up, but I have some pretty good cross hatching in there. I'm happy with it. Just freshen it up a little bit. I'm going to measure ring gap next. Normally, you set it in there and you push the old piston down in, or the new piston even, so it's nice and level right where you want it. But I'm not replacing the piston, so I'm going to have to use a feeler gauge to make sure it's down at the right height, so we can measure our clearance, or our ring gap. I've been over here reading off my end gaps for me because it's hard to remember. There it is. Grab your screenshot. And we have checked all the rings. I just left them in there. Show what I'm doing. Put them down in level. I think it says go down 40 millimeter, something like that. And measure in the little gap. And everything checks out. Getting ready to install our rings. See, they've got little marks on them. Those face up. And the silver one goes on top. So I'm going to, oh, and then the other three are the oil rings. There they are. We have to check the gap on those, which I did. The oil rings are the same. And there aren't any markings or whatever, so orientation doesn't matter, and that goes between them. Piece of cake. So now I'm going to try to get these onto the piston, and then we'll move the gaps around and get them all set. The rings are on. I had to put down my handy dandy cheater. Right there, look at the picture. So I knew what I was doing. I even cleaned the top of the piston so I could see my arrow. I thought it pointed toward the exhaust. It was pointing with the flow. It comes in the intake and out the exhaust. But I wasn't sure, so I cleaned it off just so I could see it. So now that I have all my rings set, the next step will be putting the cylinder on, which sometimes that just takes two people to do. It's kind of tricky. I also need to put the gaskets down first and the two dowels we took off. Let's get our O-ring on here. That was easy. We're going to put our gasket on, but we're going to put our gasket on the cylinder side, you know, so we're not fighting that against gravity. Gasket's in place. We'll have to fine tune it while we're putting the cylinder on. But the cylinder going on is the next part. Ow, ow. There's a little one. Not getting it. Oh, wait, did we get it? We did it? Yeah. That wasn't so bad. Yeah, it's good. Push it up. It's on. That was easy. That's easy.
You're going to turn the chain.
We can put the new timing slide in there. Oh, that went in easy. Now we're gonna get the head ready to go in. I've got one dowel there. I'm missing one here, so I'll need to go find that. There it is. Head gasket. Only goes on one way. There's a big hole on that side, and that's a big hole on that side, so that's how we do it. We're ready for the cylinder head to go onto it. We're going to reuse the head bolts, despite my best judgment. It does say you can reuse them, so we're gonna reuse them. 2 of them are longer than the others. And they go on this side according to the service manual diagram. Which makes sense because now that I look at it, those sit taller than those. So it all adds up. What I don't recall 100% is if we can get the back 2 out with the cylinder head in there because it wants to come up and hit this frame. So I think I need to put at least those 2 in there and then lower the whole thing into position.
Okay. Just lower it now. The chain is in.
Well, I can't just lower it. I think I gotta pull back off and I can't get this bolt around the frame. So, oops. Shoot.
I saw it.
So I can get it back in like that. There it goes. We have to oil all the washers so that we can set our torque properly. Okay, oiled and started. Just gonna tighten those down just by hand, get them snug first. We're gonna tighten them to a total of 29 foot-pounds in a crisscross, but we're gonna do it in 2 stages. So I have this set for 18, just something down low in the middle. We'll start here, get them to 18, then I'll tighten them down to 29. It says 2 stages. Maybe I'll do 18, then 24, and then 29 or something. Maybe I'll do a 3-stage. I don't know. I'm timid like that. And they aren't new bolts. There's 18. And 29. Okay, cylinder head's on. Now we have to put these little bolts back in. And we should have had those in the hole. Darn. Definitely want to have these in before you tighten the head bolts. They get torqued down to 7.6, but again, I don't have a torque wrench that'll do that low with this bit, so we're gonna do that by hand. We have our top dead center timing mark lined up perfect in our little access hole. Right there. I have our little bump on the cam kind of lined up with that timing bump on the top. Just to get it close, I guess. I try to get this in here. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on the teeth. There's our timing mark, our little timing bump, and our pointer right there. So we are all in time. I can't even see in that hole. It's dark. Then we can throw our bolt back in with whatever that random piece of metal is on that thing. Yeah, 43 foot-pounds on it. Reattach our water housings. Oh, our thermostat goes in there. I'll have to find that. Right? Wasn't the thermostat in there? I think so. Tighten all those down, and we're going to put our tensioner back in. You remember how to do that in the last video. I've done that once already. So, oh, and we'll put the cap on this. have to find the thermostat. I don't remember. Oh, there it is. It fell out. Looks like it's a hex small, like a hex 4 maybe. It's long enough. Exhaust pipe is up next, which I do not like. I'll get that finagled back into position. Exhaust is in. Got that clamp, those two, what are those, 10, 12 millimeter bolts on there, nuts on there, sorry. And then don't forget the slip joint, there it is. Slip joint right there. Two little bolts holding that on. Then our two little bolts holding the brackets on. Coolant temperature sensor. That was easy. And our engine mount. We have to feed that back in under here. Carburetor. Got a crankcase vent hooked up. Overflow line here. Carburetor is in position. I suppose now would be a good time to put a spark plug in it. Okay, we're gonna be putting the fuel tank on here in just a minute. So let me zip tie this back on. Got our air filter and our air box back together. I guess we should drop the fuel tank on there too. The only thing that worries me is we pulled this head off and coolant obviously spills all over, and it is possible that some got back down into the crank. So I'm going to drain the oil, just to make sure I don't have any coolant in there, and refill it. Then we can start filling it with coolant
Safer.
and turn it over, see what it does. Okay, we're gonna prime the engine just a little bit. Fuel is still off and the spark plug is unplugged. It should turn over pretty nice. That is the spark plug wire shorting out on something. It already sounds better. I hear puffs of air coming out of the exhaust, which it was not doing before, and it is sucking through the intake, and before it was kind of suck and then push, suck and push. So it seems to be a lot better. Let's get some fuel to it. There's not much fuel left in the tank, and I'm out of fuel, so I don't know. Okay, there. We're gonna have to run it on reserve. This valve is bad. Same as my Kodiak, which is interesting. If you leave this in reserve, it will leak. But in off and on, it's perfectly fine. I don't know, whatever. But we just need to see if it'll start. Hey. That's a full heat cycle. It lives. Definitely need to check valve lash though. Sounds a little sloppy.
It is.
But it's warm, so I'm gonna let it cool. Alright, I've tightened up the exhaust valve a little bit. Let's see if that sounds any better.
Oh, much better.
How was that? I think I'll check the intake just to be safe. Intake was a little much as well, so I tightened it up just a smidge. That sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Okay. Now I gotta push it outside and clean that radiator. Because it's nasty. Very nasty. It's together. As together as it gets. Well, the seat's right there. These panels, they lost those years ago. I don't know. Oh, I tucked that in too yet. But I did get him a surprise. For years I've picked on him for this. The fact that I can do this to the back. There's no shock left in his shock absorber, but I included in the price of parts a new shock absorber. So I'm gonna throw that in real quick before I do any test driving. Got it pretty much back together. So I'm gonna take it out on a heat cycle. See how well it does. Just an easy one. Gonna be light on the throttle. Running good. Test drive was successful. We went exactly 0.0 miles. Okay, that did not know that. Couple things. Just noticed this wire is touching the exhaust, as is this wire, so we need to attach those. And I forgot about his relay box for the winch. So I need to move that and mount that up somewhere. Oh, it looks like it was mounted right here on the fender. And I don't think I remembered to show yesterday. I put on the new shock. Ooh, new shock and spring. It's beautiful. There's the old piece of garbage that did nothing. Now when I push on it, it does something. This has the squirreliest steering. I don't know what's wrong with the steering. I might look a little bit closer into that. But it is running. We did it. It is done. I took it out on one more heat cycle. The reservoir is still full. See right there? Beautiful. Not leaking anything. I took care of the wires that were hanging down, touching the exhaust. Remounted his relay box for the winch. And it is back in business. Whew. Another machine crossing off the list. Now I can get back to work on that one so I can bring mine in. Oh, the list just goes on and on. I still have the Can-Am I got to work on. The parts came in. I think the parts came for that, but I digress. We're done with that one. I'll throw these videos all on the Kodiak playlist so you can see them there, 4-part series. Links to the other parts are in the video description if you want to check those out there. I want to thank you again for watching, especially members through Patreon, patreon.com/3dayweekend, or you can join right through the YouTube channel. Appreciate it either way. That really helps us out quite a bit. If you haven't ever left a comment, I encourage you to do that too. Leave me suggestions, what you want to see, that kind of thing. Always like talking to you guys. I reply to every comment that I get so far. But thanks again for watching. I hope to see you here for another video on 3-Day Weekend.